So we're going to combine a couple different tricks here. Nothing terribly difficult, but when you kind of accent certain parts of a word, it can be kind of a neat way to sort of bring things to life. And we're going to once again animate some text characteristics this time. Not just the fact that they are text, but things that are inherent to the text, which is tracking. So we're going to create this. To do this, we have a couple things going on. We have 3 layers on top, or in this case, sort of behind, which are the letters right here that fall. And then we have a single layer of the letters moving together by adjusting the tracking controls. So we're going to want to build that first probably, and then we can add the other elements to it. So to do that, we are going to start a new composition. Hopefully you're in a project where you're keeping all of these things. And we're going to call this web add, just for the sake of something different. And in 1920, 1080, 24 frames is good. All of this is good. And black background is fine. And we're going to hit OK. All right, so we need a text layer. I'm going to go to new, text, and I'm going to type Webster again. All right, not a fan of that font, so we're going to change it. All right, that's pretty good. And we are going to go ahead and make it white. So in order to animate the things like you saw, I'm going to align these, which again, I have to make sure I'm really on a layer. All the alignment stuff will be grayed out. There we go. And we are going to animate a text feature called tracking. So if I go to text and I say animate, and then I say go to tracking, we then have the ability over the course of a second or two, and we're going to do about a second. So I'm going to go about a second in. And we are going to do a tracking amount. So right now there's no tracking being adjusted. So I'm going to create a keyframe here because this is where it's going to be normal. And then I'm going to go back to the beginning and I'm going to set another keyframe. But then I'm going to make an adjustment. All right, so now you'll see that it pops on and closes. All right, I don't want to loop anything longer than about 3 seconds. So I'm going to hit the letter N to make my workspace a little more manageable. And there you can see my keyframes. It just simply grows and lands in place. Now again, it kind of comes to a screeching halt. So I'm going to right click on it, go to the keyframe assistant and do ease in. Nice. All right, so the other thing I might want to do is have it fade up while it's doing that. So while I already have a keyframe marked in a position where I know the letters are done moving, I might as well go into the opacity settings, which will always be under transform, and I can say give me opacity at normal here, so this keyframe it's all full, and then I can go to the beginning, set another one by hand, and then turn it down. So now it goes on like that, which is pretty cool. All right, so maybe we want to also have it scale. Let's be real tricky. So again, I like this as a landing place. Let's go to scale. We'll mark a keyframe here. We'll go back to the beginning, mark another keyframe manually with the little dot, and I'm going to scale it up a little bit. So now it should fall back and land, which is kind of nice. And again, if I don't think it's smooth enough, I can always go to the keyframe and say, give me something smoother. Ease in, and it should sort of very graceful. All right, so that's pretty cool. I think that layer is done. We can change the timing of it by moving it left or right, which is kind of cool. Now, then we have sort of the WEB letters. So those, as you can imagine, were just the same thing, big, with an outline. So I am actually going to duplicate this layer. Just because it'll give me some advantage, I'm going to Command D. So we copied it one time, and we're going to animate one letter just to make our lives a little easier. And then we'll just duplicate it and replace the letter. We have an animator that we don't need for the effect we're doing, so I'm actually going to click on the animator for this layer, and I'm going to nuke it. And then I'm going to go get rid of some of the text. So I'm going to go to the title tool, and I'm going to swipe away everything after the W. And then I'm going to take that W, and I'm going to scale it way up. And you can see I have a little bit of an outline on it. I can move it around. We want to put it to where we can kind of get WEB to go across the screen. So I'm just going to sort of pick a thing, and then I can actually say The foreground color, I want it to be nothing. So now it's hollow. And then the stroke, which is the outside or outline color, I can change to a different color too. And I'm going to make this one blue. All right. So now I have a letter that falls kind of in sync with everything else, which we can move that. But as you can see, it's kind of cool. Now the Webster probably needs to go in front. So let's move it behind and then boom, Webster's in front. Now the other thing is maybe I want it to fade in and then fade away. So maybe right after it lands, it begins fading. So I'm going to open up the controls for this W. If I open the transform, I can actually move to the exact keyframe location. And that is a scale effect. So I could actually say, let's take the scaling and let's do keyframe assistant on that and ease in. So now it'll land as smooth as everything else does, which is pretty cool. The only thing is I want it to fade. So I'm going to just sort of arbitrarily choose 10 frames afterwards. And I'm going to go to the opacity that was already set to fade up. And I'm going to set a new keyframe on the opacity layer. And I'm going to turn it down. So now the W falls in and then fades away. All right. So that's pretty good. Again, we're going to stagger these things so it makes a little more sense, but that's not a bad thing. So like we can already say, well, the Webster's not going to come in for a while. Let's just move it down. And let's focus on this front end. So I'm just going to slide it down a full 2 seconds just for me now. All right, so now we've got the W landing. Now we need an E version and a B version. So I'm going to go to the W layer. I'm going to Command D. So right now we have 2 blue layers on top of each other. I'm going to use the arrow tool to move this W over to where the E needs to go. And then of course I need to actually make it an E. So I'm going to click on it. And I'm going to change it to an E. And then I'm going to play with the position and get it to where I want it. And then if I play it, we should see the W and the E land at essentially the same pacing. And of course, once I have an E, then I can do it again. And this is going to be my B. And what will I do to control that? Well, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to actually go in and move it over first, get it close to right, and then get my text tool and make sure that I've highlighted it and change it to the letter B. And then if I'm not perfectly happy with the positioning, I will fix it. And of course, I noticed that the E should probably be over. That tends to work a little better. All right, and now they should all fall pretty smoothly and pretty much the same. And then I can move my Webster word back into place. It's on the top layer, so it should override all that blue. And maybe I'm actually fading things off too fast. So if I want to, I could go to W, E, and B. I could highlight all of them, hit T for opacity, and see all the keyframes for the opacity, and I can move them down. And I can see them enough to sort of time them out the same. So now you get that. So what could be nice is I could say, well, let's let the W start first, the E, and then the B. So now you get a ripple by just having staggered them. My computer's rendering. And here comes smooth. Yeah, it's pretty nice. We could have done different colors. I did the blue just for speed, but as you can see, you can create a pretty elegant effect pretty quickly.